Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by my guy Nate Weitzer on the East Coast. We got a couple of Halloween costumes on for you guys today. I am clearly Patrick Ewing. Losing my hair as Trae Young is in my head. And Nate is clearly a referee with sunglasses on and probably can't see that well and is also drunk because that seems to be how the refereeing is going so far this year. At any rate, we are going to be bringing you guys a couple of game videos today and our player props. Make sure to like and subscribe to that page. Continue to follow along. In this one, we're kicking things off with Philly at Washington. Washington on that back-to-back. Philly maybe turning things around. Tyrese Maxey needs some more time. We'll talk about all that stuff here in just a minute. Also want you to head to thelines.com. That's where we have our great written content for you guys all season long that I'm interrupting Nate from finalizing right now for you guys on those picks on thelines.com. And we have our great odds finder tool there where you can go ahead and make sure that you are using that to shop those lines to the best of your ability across U.S. sportsbooks. Nate, let's jump into the lines for this Monday night slate and get into Philly, Washington.
Yeah, what do we got? 7 games here on Halloween night. Philly, actually, as I just spoke, moved up to a -5.5. That's a damn shame. Hopefully you got them last night at -4.5 at Washington. We're going to talk about that game there in a moment. The Kings, -2.5 right now at Charlotte. I saw that open at close to a pick'em. Pacers are +8.5 at Brooklyn. Immediate rematch there. And we will break that game down for you in a separate video. Hawks +4 at the Raptors. Pistons +13 at Bucks. Grizz -3.5 at the Jazz. Another immediate rematch there. Ja Morant out with a non-COVID illness, most likely out. And then the Rockets are +10 at the Clippers. So I guess that's 8 games, right? Yeah, Philly, I think -5.5 at this point. I'm gonna suggest a teaser, but I do think that they're gonna win this game. I'm not really confident in Philly blowing anybody out at this point, but I think they are on track here in their last 4 or so, and Washington is off track, kind of like we saw last season. The Wizards started hot. I mean, they had a nice 3-4 week stretch last season, and then they just regressed to who we know they are, which is a mediocre team with not a lot of pieces that fit. I mean, they're 1-3 against the spread, 1-3 straight up their last 4. Philly, the opposite, 3-1 against the spread as well, covering a 12-point spread to beat Indy after that rough start to kind of show that they can get on track here. And really, I mean, the key has been Tyrese Maxey, who you mentioned briefly in that intro. I mean, in his last 4 here, 120 offensive rating, shooting 54%, 53% from 3, and just getting him more involved, really. I mean, letting him push the pace and carry a bit of the offensive load here while Joel Embiid battles plantar fasciitis, while Harden tries to adjust his game to the fact that he's not blowing by people anymore, and Maxey is blowing by people, and Washington has had no answers for him. I mean, they don't really have a defensive point guard, right? I mean, unless they want to play Raul Neto all night. Is he still on the squad? I can't even remember.
I don't think so, no.
But yeah, in his last 6, with Mr. Neto serving as a turnstile in some way there, he has a 135 offensive rating against the Wiz, 143 in his last 2 when he actually started to get more playing time. I mean, these are insane per minute numbers for Maxey, and it's just a matter of getting him more opportunities and giving him the keys to the offense a little more. Philly had won 6 straight against this team, and then they lost 2 in a row. And it's not like we have a bunch of excuses for them as to why they lost. I mean, they shot 27% in a 20-point loss. They shot from 3, that is. And then Spencer Dinwiddie out of nowhere with a triple-double to give the Wizards a 106-103 win in Philly. But if you look at the overall numbers, I mean, Embiid has his way with this team, averaging 28, shooting 55%. Like I said, Maxey is a matchup problem for him, and Harden has good numbers against the Wizards. And then you just look at both these teams are good denying paint points right now. I mean, Philly's 3rd, Washington's 1st in paint points allowed. Embiid's not really banging down there as much. They're not depending on the paint points as much. Or it's at least not traditional scoring in the paint the way Maxey and Harden are slashing in there with that floater game, right? But number 1 in free throws allowed. That's what I'm looking at here is the advantage for Philly. They are number 1. And last year they were number 1 generating free throws. They're not up there yet, but right now Washington is dead last in free throws produced on offense, and they're allowing the 7th most on defense. So if you can't protect the rim without fouling, you're going to get into trouble with an Embiid-led team here. And then you look at down the stretch, Philly's top 10 in both fourth quarter scoring and points allowed. And Washington has not been a good clutch team in a very, very small sample size here to open the season. But a 40% rebounding rate and a negative 9.5 net rating in clutch time makes me think if it's close, Philly's going to pull this one out. That's why I like the tease here to get it -1. Because I do think they're going to win the game. I'm just a little concerned about them covering 6 at this point.
Got it. Yeah, no, I follow all of that, and I like the clutch numbers. And I kind of like the trend of Washington starting out hot on defense again last year, like they did last year. Top 10 in defensive rating for all their games. It's similar to last year to me again, though, and I've kind of been waiting to fade the Wiz. That sounds like a slogan, but they've played some bad teams, right? I mean, Chicago, Indy twice, Detroit, and then Cleveland and Boston. And Chicago's not as bad as I thought they were going to be this season. I think they're actually a little bit better. DeMar going to DeMar, but at the same time, this is indicative of obviously the Pacers. We'll talk about them. They've been really, really, really good on offense. But still, this is a team that their defensive numbers, even actually not against the Pacers this season, are the reason that they're seemingly in the position that they're in so far this season. I think you're still getting a decent amount of juice. I think people, though, apparently in the last 12 hours started to feel the same way as us and start to believe a little bit more in Washington or in Philly and believe a little bit less in Washington, especially after you saw them get beat by double digits last night to Boston. So, that back-to-back for them does create some problems. They were 8-5-1 last year, but that was also in a situation where if you look at about 10 of those games that they were on zero rest last year, they were almost a double-digit dog in all of those games because Bradley Beal wasn't there for most of the season, et cetera. So I do think that record is a little bit inflated, and this year we're going to see a little bit more of that. But yeah, for Philly, this is going to be another slightly stars out, bets up. I do think there's an opportunity for an over here at plus at 216.5 or so, just because of the fact that Joel guarding the paint is something that they're going to be missing. And Washington, yeah, look, it's been nice so far this season guarding the paint, but like I said, who have they played that you are concerned about getting in the paint amongst any of the teams that they've played? All of these teams are perimeter oriented teams. I guess Cleveland, you could say, would bang down low. They only gave up 107 there, but everywhere else, if you have guards that can score on the perimeter, they're about to give up a ton of points to you for sure, as we saw with Boston the other night, about 112. So yeah, I'm leaning over in this game as well. I mean, you kind of said everything I would have to say about Philly, and the fact that without Embiid in, I think that just leads you to think Maxi's going to get more time. And like I said, this Washington team is much better at defending you down low right now than they are on those wings, especially after losing KCP and such. So yeah, I think this leads to Philadelphia definitely winning this game, and then I do like the total a little bit over. I think it's probably crept up for a bit to about 220. It's down to about 216.5. So that's why I'm starting to eye that total a little bit more as it keeps dropping.
Yeah, I mean, I love the idea, if you can get Embiid ruled out, of getting some value here with the Sixers, because it's not like we're fading Embiid in any way or saying he's not valuable. It's just that they play differently, and it's going to work much better in this matchup if you're able to pick up the pace and play through Maxey a little bit more. Who, speaking of his props, averaged 7.7 more points per game last season without Embiid. Just had monster game against the Raptors where he basically didn't miss in the first half and crushed it to lead our player props there. So new friend of the show, Mr. Maxey. But yeah, I mean, the Wiz, yeah, they're limiting what you do down low with the center like Embiid anyway. Like I said, number 1 paint points, number 2 in 2-point percentage. They don't really capitalize on what Philly does so terribly, which is not rebound, because they're 25th in offensive rebounding. Like I said, not good down the stretch in terms of rebounding. I mean, both these teams are just abysmal rebounding teams. So it's that kind of helps your over, I suppose. If you can't secure defensive rebounds, you might get second chances. You might get the pace freewheeling more. And yeah, I just think Philly is so deep now with these offseason moves that they can definitely weather an Embiid absence for a game or 2 or 3 even now. Whereas last year it was kind of like, oh, Embiid's out 1, like they're screwed. But then like all of a sudden here comes Maxey giving you 35 and they're just fine. So yeah, I'd be interested to see if the line moves if he is ruled out.
Yeah, and I'm not seeing any player props for Philly still. You can get a couple Washington players on a couple of these US sports books, but you're not going to see any Philly props until we know whether or not Embiid is playing. And if he's not, you're probably seeing that Maxey prop at about 20, 21 or so. I would still take that. If Maxey's prop is under like 23, 24 points, I still feel good about it. I think you're looking at a James Harden, Tyrese Maxey show, and Tyrese is going to get that ball and go. So that's also why I feel better about an over, especially as it sits at about 216 right now. So
look, the Brooklyn Nets don't deserve to be favored by 5-6 points right now. I mean, we've been on that train since the middle to end of last season too, when they actually had a bit more cohesion and a bit more health in terms of their supporting cast, mental health in Ben Simmons' case, because he's still a liability on offense. He had a nice season high 9 points in this last game against the Pacers, but his defense regressed. 131 defensive rating. As a team, they let the Pacers shoot 23 for 46 from three. My Lord, they gave up 17 offensive rebounds. They lost the rebounding battle by 19, and Miles Turner didn't play. Miles Turner's been back 2 games. He's openly asking the Lakers to trade for him and showcased his talents in a win at Washington. Went for 27, 10, 2, 5 blocks, I believe, to become the Pacers' all-time blocks leader with a 106 defensive rating. He was a plus 20. So, I mean, if he plays tonight, I think you are all over the Pacers at plus 8.5, maybe on the Pacers' money line as well. Look, Barclays is not a home court advantage. It is the SoFi Stadium of the NBA, which was just chock full of 49ers fans yesterday in a pretty amusing scene. But I digress. I mean, the Pacers, early in the season, there was some cries that like, oh my God, they're benching Halliburton already. I think they haven't really done that. I mean, he's played about 38 minutes his last few here, and as long as he's out there, their offense you have nothing to worry about. I mean, yeah, they're second in points per game, 7th in pace, 7th in rating. And here's the key here when we talk about Brooklyn's struggles rebounding. They're number 1 in offensive rebounding rate, 35%, even better than the Pelicans, who just put a whooping on the Nets in that opener. Yeah. They're number 2 in total rebounding. Even without Miles Turner, like I said, Isaiah Jackson stepped in and gave him the work with 18, 10, and 4. He was a plus 25. So they have several bigs. I mean, Jalen Smith you can throw in there that is going to give the Nets problems. And the Nets have no fight in them right now, and rebounding is mostly about fight and want to. They are, Indy's the 4th worst defensive rating in the league, but the Nets are the worst by 4 points per 100 possessions. They're that much worse. So I could see a bit of a turnaround in terms of them not losing so badly here. But I feel like the line's almost flipped. Like at this point, the Nets should be underdogs against anyone except maybe like the Rockets or,
Lakers.
Well, we didn't get since they catch strays, I'll give them a nice bounty here that they did come alive last night and then acted like they won the championship in the locker room afterwards in that first win. But the Lakers might be turning a corner a little bit. I'm going to wait for about 5 or 6 more positive results before I give them any sort of steam in the betting realm. But we digress. Yeah, the Nets are playing joyless basketball. KD has a 1,000-yard stare where he's just like, why am I still here? And this thing is going south in a hurry.
Yeah, it started south and has continued going south, similar to a lot of my golf shots. They start right, they stay right. 113 offensive rating, 122 defensive rating, man. Like 3rd worst net rating in the league. Just start there, dude. Like you've got a team with KD and Kyrie on it, and you look, maybe your defensive rating should reside somewhere in the high 100 teens, right, close to 120. It definitely shouldn't be 122, but maybe it still resides somewhere around there. You would expect this team to have 123 offensive rating then, right? 124 offensive rating, be winning games by 125 to 119, not losing games to the Pacers by 8 points with a total around 245 as most of their games have been, right? So there's a lot to like in this game. Like you said, if I were to correctly identify what this line should be, it's like -1, -2 for this Brooklyn team. Like, what about the last game that you just saw them play where they lost by 9? led you to believe that like something's going to be better in this game? Is it? I mean, KD and Kyrie had to combine for 71 points. KD had to shoot, not had to. He just happened to shoot 40-20 splits. He was 1 for 5 from deep with a 32% usage rate. There is no offense. There's your turn, my turn. They're in the bottom 5 in terms of assisted field goals from wherever they're shooting from. They are getting to the line pretty decently, so they're still scoring points. They still have 2 of the best scorers in the league in the last, 20, 30 years at least. I mean, KD might be the best scorer of all time. So they still got guys that are going to get theirs. But this 9-point spread is absolutely befuddling. They haven't even beaten the Pacers by 9 points, Nate, since April of 2021, right? So that was the very end of last season when nobody was even playing for anybody anymore. And the Nets had squarely secured themselves a spot. Season before. Well, yeah, it's already 2022. Jesus. Yeah, exactly. So even before last season, April 22 was last playoff. So in basically 2 years, they haven't even beaten them by 9 points. All of those games that I just mentioned, there's been about 7 of them have gone over 240. One of them did not go over 240 total points. So we've seen what these teams do. It's been the same type of game every time these teams play. You mentioned Brooklyn cannot rebound the ball. Indiana is number 1 in offensive rebound rate. They're number 2 in defensive in rebounding percentage overall. And like I said, Brooklyn's second worst rebound percentage in the league. They're allowing a bunch of they're scoring points off of turnovers. Is Brooklyn, as certain guys like Ben Simmons have come in and are able to like at least create some more havoc on defense than they've been able to produce. They have some long armed guys who can at least get in there and steal the ball and get some points off turnovers. Doesn't matter. Indiana still is not not turning the ball over, allowing teams to get points off of that in transition. They both shoot a ton of free throws, which is continuing to like the over here. 236.5 sounds crazy, but like, I don't know. These teams score 240 points every time they play, right? Both of them are allowing their opponents to shoot in the top 5 in terms of their effective field goal percentage. It's not necessarily like this fast-paced run-and-gun game, as both of these teams are in the bottom 10 in pace somehow, despite the fact that they're both 2 of the highest scoring offenses in the league. It's just a lack of defense, a lack of rebounding on Brooklyn's part, a lack of any kind of offensive rhythm on Brooklyn's part, and I just go, yeah, I would take Indy all the way at like +5. You know what I mean? So, I mean, if you want to buy some points, I don't hate you. If you want to take a +300 money line bet for Indy, I don't hate it, as they just beat this team by 9 and have won 2 in a row against them. So it's just a really, really weird spread for me. And I'm wondering how is it not even getting bet down at this point, in Indy's favor?
Yeah, we talk about trying to like project game flow or the path to victory. And for the Nets, if you're the worst rebounding team by far, and you have 2 offensive players, you need them both to shoot over 60% and to get about 35 points. Like, that is the only path to victory. And then it's still going to be a close game. Like, that's basically why we're looking at this. Like, how would they cover 9 points? I mean, it's possible that the Pacers just can't hit anything, but you're completely depending on the other team to just miss. I mean, they have no interior defensive presence. Those 2 guys are exhausted from the load they have to carry on offense. And most importantly, they have no supporting cast. Like, Seth Curry just came back, clearly not healthy yet. He was 0 for 5 in 18 minutes. Joe Harris is still working his way back after missing a year. He's not, and we know the situation with Ben Simmons. Like, we don't need to harp on it. It's just there's not a lot of help for those guys, and there's just not a lot of morale, obviously. I don't see them finding some lift and energy like the Lakers did again right now. Yeah, they're the award for shit show of the year early on, and the Pacers have some depth. They got Benny Matz coming off the bench now, who gave him 35 last time out, and just want to look at those Rookie of the Year odds. I mean, Paolo right now is cruising to that award. But if you want some value, Benny Matz is plus 1,200. I think he has a better shot than the 3 guys in between them, Jaden Ivey, Jabari, and Keegan Murray. I think Benny could wind up surpassing them once the Pacers, probably get rid of Buddy Hield and Turner, and then, give him the heavy usage. And there's definitely some value to look at him pulling that award out.
There is. Yeah, there is. I mean, I've been on the Paolo train since I was at Summer League and was just watching him play. Like, one of these dudes is not like all of the other ones, right? But Benny Matz, just to be clear, Benedict Mathurin, who we're talking about here on the Pacers, who heretofore Benny Matz, he is a guy who, like we've talked about all season too, can come in and just already has an NBA-built build to him. Already has the stamina to just chuck from deep without getting tired in those NBA threes. Indiana scoring the 5th most points off of 3-pointers. Brooklyn giving up the highest percentage of 3-pointers to their opponents at 44%. As you mentioned, 50% for Indiana from deep against Brooklyn in their last game. Benny Matt 6 for 9. Tyrese also in that mix. So just a lot to like from both those guys as well. When Buddy Hield and Miles Turner do get traded, maybe this team will start to stink. But we called it at the beginning of the season. We were going over on these Pacers as they're not a team that's going to really try to tank, especially if you're going to leave Halliburton in the game. So Nate, let's jump into these player props that we are staying red hot with on this Monday night slate in the NBA.
I'm going to target that Kings Hornets game. Definitely speaks to a shootout. And the total somehow dropped to 231.5, was up at 233. So I would look at that over there. And I'm looking at De'Aaron Fox to continue to lead the Kings offense. Domantas Sabonis has not really been the 1B option right now. It is Fox controlling things and having a career year. He's shooting 55% from the floor, first of all, on a 32% usage rate. It makes him one of the 3 most efficient guys in the league thus far, and averaging 28 points off that, getting 7.2 rebounds, which is by far the best of his career. And then, of course, he's diming people up at 5.5 assists. I like the rebounds to go along with his points here, 30.5, because like I said, 7 boards. You can get him at 24 points if he gets his average boards against a Charlotte team that plays with plenty of pace per usual. The Kings are playing at the 3rd fastest pace. Charlotte's allowing a league high 58 points in the paint. They're number 1 in 3-point percentage, interestingly, but Fox is a slasher. He's not going to shoot that many threes, and they're 23rd in 2-point percentage allowed. Their defensive rating is worse at home. Charlotte allows the 6th most points and 7th most rebounds to point guards, true to that kind of fast pace, and still no LaMelo Ball. So Fox should, have his way in that individual matchup against Terry Rozier. I guess he'll start on.
Yeah, I think Terry missed a game or 2 here and there. I mean, Dennis Smith Jr. is playing really well, but that also means you're not getting any defense at that point guard position for sure. That man is a turnstile despite being super athletic and looking really good on offense for them so far this year when he's had to play some big minutes. But yeah, that defense, and it's Charlotte at home, man. I'm going 240 totals all day, every day with Charlotte at home as they don't play any defense there, and they just run and they're fun to watch at the very least. Funner than I thought they might be without LaMelo to start the season, not Lonzo. But either way, yeah, Fox 25.5 points. He's continuing to cruise. The second best offensive player in this team is Keegan Murray right now, followed probably by Kevin Huerter as Domantas is still down below 15 points a game, doing other things, getting boards. But yeah, I really love the Fox bet, and I like a lot of bets in this, and a lot of overs in this Charlotte and Kings game. So I'm gonna move on to another game that we talked about in the game video there, the Pacers and Nets. Also liked probably an over there, as 240 points is about what they score, the floor of what those two teams score against each other. Halliburton is the best player on Indiana, as we well know. 34.5 points, rebounds, and assists is his prop. Gets about minus 111 on FanDuel. You can also take 2.5 3-pointers made for him, as the Pacers shot 50% from 3 last game, playing against Brooklyn, who gives up 44% to their opponents from beyond the arc. 26, 6, and 8 was his total last time against Brooklyn. 6 of 10 from 3. I mean, if he's going to take 10 threes and you're going to get plus money on 2.5 3-pointers made over that, like, love that, right? You can continue to expect the possessions to be, high this game. In his last 4 versus the Nets, obviously one of those on the Kings, 20 points a game, 4 boards, about 10 assists. That's all in 38 minutes. So when he's getting the time out there, he's crushing those Nets who just they don't defend at the point guard spot. They don't really defend at any spot. He's made over almost 3.5 threes a game at 43% against those Nets as well in that last 4. So I mean, look, he's already come on. They're going to have to sit Halliburton if they plan on tanking, because in his last 5, 22 a game, 10 assists, averaging again about 3.5 threes on 50%. Like the man is definitely who we thought he was and who the Pacers thought he was when they traded for him. So against one of the worst defensive teams in the league, 35 PRA for the man feels really, really nice.
Yeah, I mean, the Pacers as a team are just going to have their way here, and Halliburton's going to be the trigger man. So I think that's an easy call here for him to just rack up stats, and for them to be serious about sweeping this team. They should play him 38 plus minutes, sweeping them in this home and home set, of course, I'm referring to. I'm going to go under on Trae Young, although I am kind of terrified by his recent game log. It's very impressive. Just had a 44% usage rate against Milwaukee, the number one defense in the league. But I think Toronto is a team that can give him trouble with their length, and they have. He shot 45% or worse in 5 of his last 6 against Toronto. And he's averaging what his prop is in those games, 28.5. But that's skewed by a 41-point outlier where he was a plus 37. The Hawks won by 27 at home. And we talked all last year about the Hawks home road splits, and Trae was part of that. I mean, at home, averaged 30 points, shot 48% from the floor, 41% from deep. On the road, 26.5, shot 35% from deep. Toronto this year, I mean, with all that length, they can throw guys at point guards, give them trouble. They're allowing the fewest field goal attempts overall, first of all. They're playing at a pace of 94.5. They're 4-2 to the under. They're allowing the 3rd fewest points in the second half. So obviously great team defense from Nick Nurse and the club, but the 3rd fewest points per game to point guards, just 17 points per game. So Trae is a matchup problem for anybody. He is a guy who can light it up, but I think Toronto is positioned to do a decent job on him, and the Hawks might use a little bit more DeJounte Murray if they have to, if the Raptors are, throwing OG on Trae or Fred VanVleet or some combination of that, and then see if DeJounte Murray can step up, whereas Trae's just been, lighting it up the last 3 games while DeJounte gets acclimated to this offense.
Yeah, that's fair. Yes, an under terrifies me for Trae, but this would be one of the teams that you feel good about doing that with, and you definitely want to get him, preferably, I guess, at home, which is kind of weird. But either, for Trae, I mean, he just loves to be the villain, man. So yeah, it's a little scarier to take him on the road. But either way, yeah, 28.5. It's still very, very high, man. He has gone under that, in 3 of these games this season, mostly to start the season as he's been swelling against Detroit. And then it's that Milwaukee against the best defense in the league that you kind of get a little bit nervous about. But look, I think he also tries to bring it against Drew Holiday, who is known as probably the best defensive point guard in the league. He plays in those big games, and this is a big game, but it ain't Milwaukee, at this point in the season. So I'm going to finish things off here with, I don't know, low hanging fruit. Ben Simmons under 9.5 points. Minus 125 at DK. Now for him to get 10 points is even money if you go over that, over 9.5. So I'm going under. He's going to have to show me he can score 10 points. It's not just the fact that he hasn't scored 10 points this season, because as you mentioned, we had to sweat out his 9 points. If you took an under on his 9.5 point prop in the last game against the Pacers, you sweated that out as he got 9 of them, but he got 5 free throw attempts in that game, by far the most of the season. That's a third of the free throws that he's shot this season. He's 6 for 15 on the season from the free throw line. He shot 5 in the last game. He's averaging about 2 free throw attempts a game, making sometimes one of them at 40% on the season. He's got 34 field goal attempts through 6 games. That's 5.5 field goal attempts a game. If he's going to get 10 points, he basically has to make every shot he takes, or he's going to need to throw some free throws in there, except for 3 games this season. He hasn't even attempted a free throw, which is absurd for someone who's 6'10". Not going to harp on it. But the one position that Indiana does limit more than any other is power forward. I mean, he's not a traditional power forward, but that's definitely where he starts and where he is on the floor on offense after he gets, they like to have him bring the ball up and then pass it to KD and run around. And it's like, why is he even bringing the ball up? Are you just trying to make him feel involved? That's fine. The point is when he does get into the offensive set and he is playing more of a 4 pick and roll type of play sort of position, that's the 4, and that's where Indiana guards, what the position they guard better than any other, limiting power forwards basically in the top 10 limiting power forwards in pretty much points, rebounds, assists, everything crucial here. So like I said, man, like maybe he'll get 10 points tonight, but like the odds of him doing that with all of the ways that he's playing and the lack of shots that he's even putting up, why would I not feel great about under 10 points?
I mean, everyone's taken a victory lap for having bet this successfully the first 5 or so games Mr. Simmons has played. I don't think it's going to last. I mean, I think he's going to round a corner in terms of his mental confidence, and there has to be a lot of discussion behind closed doors about, Ben, shoot the ball, attack the rim in transition, Ben. And this is a game that we expect to be up and down, that we expect to be played in transition. I'm more intrigued by the plus odds on 10 points. And it's eight and a half at FanDuel. Like, I'm not taking an under on 8.5 points for guys playing 37 minutes. If you are nervous about the scoring, rebounds and assists at 15.5. He just had 17 in this matchup. I mean, say what you will about his mental health at this point, but he's a 6'10", like, freak athlete playing in an up-tempo system in a matchup between two of the worst defenses in the league. So I'm going to go on record saying Ben Simmons turns a mini corner here and does not put up the single triple, gets double-digit something, and perhaps it's the points. But I wouldn't continue to try to print money on his under.
That would be a hilarious bet. Double digits something, please. Just a double digit something. What are those odds at for Ben Simmons? We'll find out if he can get the 10 tonight. Maybe we put a little 6-pack on Ben Simmons' ability to get double digit points here. It's Halloween, man. Weird shit can happen. Maybe it's something he does put up the more than 5 shots in this game. We'll see. Either way, a lot of fun tonight with these player props. A pretty good slate here tonight, Nate. I think there's some games that we're going to enjoy watching. Definitely want to make sure to like and subscribe to that page. Continue to follow along. Make sure you're getting these player props from us each and every weekday of this regular season. And until we see you next, happy betting.